Hey everybody, thank you for checking out the Real Abhinav audio experience. I just want to let you know, even if you don't finish this episode, that I have tremendous amount of love for you and I wish nothing but good things to come for you this year. Even though we're going through a crazy crisis globally, I know that it's going to get better, and I know deep inside you do too, which is why you're here. Get it going. So if you're hearing that laughter, that's our guest for today, Michaela Smith, joining us from Colorado, the founder and the curator of Karma Koaches and Meditation Nut. Michaela, thank you so much for taking the time on this wonderful evening to spend a little bit of it with me.
Absolutely. Thank you. This is wonderful already.
Amazing. So listen, I really want to start out with talking about meditation and everything with it. You know, it's very interesting to me. I've gotten into meditation about 3 years ago, but people I know always misunderstand what meditation is. A lot of times they think it's just sitting still and doing nothing, which is a hard concept if you don't really understand, or if you're not going through a rough period in your life. It's really hard for most people to understand why that would be valuable, because we live in such a busy world where everything is just moving at the speed of the internet, right? So curious to hear a little bit about, your journey with meditation. I know you've been meditating for over a decade. So what kind of got you into that? Why did you decide to do that?
I think that's what most people's question is usually. It's usually like, Michaela, really? And what I found, so I was originally introduced to it through my brother, actually. And as I watched his practice, I noticed that he was so much calmer and less activated by things. And I was like, oh man. And I've always been the pouncer, I guess you could call it, and the one who's out to instigate things.
I see.
And so I haven't always been very passive.
Sounds familiar.
And so within that, I was really jealous actually of what I saw within him. And I was like, gosh, I've got to go figure out what this is. And so I started going to the same place that he was going, which was this little meditation center, and started learning some of the practices and the principles. And then I got hooked, and I got hooked probably about, I'm trying to think, probably 4 years later, where it was really obvious that I needed to start doing a daily practice. For my own physical well-being, because one of the things that's amazing about meditation is that it actually can help your nervous system calm down. And so have you ever done the breath work of in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4?
Yeah, in my history, so I did a few things. I learned meditation off of YouTube first off, and then I was like, that's not enough, because it was not really structured for me. And so I went to this thing called inner engineering. I don't know if you've heard of it before.
It sounds familiar.
So there's a yogi or a mystic from India. His name is Sadhguru. He started this foundation, Isha Foundation, which is this huge nonprofit that is global, and it's amazing because really the mission is to help people make themselves better. It's cleverly named. Their introductory course is called inner engineering, because so many of us are out here architecting our external world, but not only, that doesn't really help us inside all the time. And that's where I kind of got my structured meditation or initiation into it, which includes some, breath work around that. So I understand, generally speaking, when I sit down to meditate, no matter what kind of state I was in, I definitely feel a change of state in my body and my mind for sure after I'm done. So I can definitely relate to the fact that, even I've done some Wim Hof. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his breathing technique. It's kind of like hyperventilating, but it definitely hyperoxygenates you, and it can definitely change your state.
Well, it helps the immune system. That's the other piece that I've learned so much. So one of the pieces that once I started doing that daily practice, and daily practice, it was literally sometimes 5 minutes. And so it was a process though to kind of figure out, well, what does maybe 20 minutes look like? And then what does a day retreat look like? What does a weekend retreat look like? And like starting to play with some of that. And then I had multiple teachers, obviously, throughout amongst multiple different traditions and otherwise, within Buddhism and within Hinduism. Like for me, it's never mattered as to like where they show up. They just kind of show up. And that's been my experience. And so through that conversation, it's been more so on how can I like develop this practice and be able to keep continuing on and see how I can like calm down my nervous system. So one of the things that I have learned is that I've personally experienced autoimmune type responses in my body. And one of the pieces with meditation is that it can help seriously calm down the whole entire physical body and the entire nervous system so that it allows for like the full experience of the physical body and like the physical being. And which can be an amazing experience if you haven't had that in a long time, or you don't feel well for a long period of time. It just all of a sudden, like your whole body just goes, oh, so much better. So it's been a really long journey, I guess, for myself, which is why then now, why I've got the meditation nut.
Yeah, tell me what that's all about. Meditation nut. What an interesting name.
Well, so I've got to tell a story because stories are so fun.
Yes, go right ahead.
So I went onto Fiverr and I said, okay, what I want is like this logo that is like a nut, because I feel like sometimes being a nut is quite fun. And it's silly, it's fun, it's playful, it's open, it's connected. Like that's how I feel. And so this person created this logo, and it had, I mean, I laughed so hard whenever I saw this, because it has like these super skinny arms and then these luscious calves on like this little cartoon of a nut. And it's just hilarious because I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who finds
No, definitely. I think that was partly what attracted us to want to reach out to you. We're like, what the heck is this meditation nut thing? Super curious all out of the gate. So I was very interested to get a hold of you. So definitely it works, you know?
Yeah.
It works.
Didn't even mean for it to. But yeah, in the process of it, one of the things that I now do within my own coaching practice is using meditation as a space for transformation. Because one of the things within meditation that's so powerful is, yes, it does calm down the system. However, whenever our thoughts come up over and over and over and over again, and we don't know how to get past that track, or the same movie keeps playing, or the same clouds keep going by, whatever the visualization that people use to create that it doesn't allow for anything new to actually show up. And so then what I end up doing is, through my own coaching practice, is getting people into the space of meditation, so getting them grounded, and then being able to go through exercises that allow for them to actually see who they really are out the other side. And who we really are is just amazing, powerful human beings. And that's the piece that we get the opportunity to be present to.
You know, that's very interesting to kind of dissect a little bit for me, because meditation is one of those things where I don't think I never would have, if you had asked me 10 years ago, like, hey, you should meditate, I would have probably not given it a second thought, because it didn't make sense to me. I was in a very different environment at the time in my life. I was a little bit younger, of course, and I was also kind of getting, very egotistically driven, because that seemed made to make most sense at that age. You're trying to identify yourself as something in this world, so you latch onto some ideas and you start to pursue them, and you start to tell everybody about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Meanwhile, I think deep inside, no matter who you're trying to be, it's an interesting game regardless, because when we're doing that, deep inside, I think there's always this knowing of like, I'm playing a character. I'm not fully being someone that I think I could be. Like, and part of that is like maybe realizing that that's the game we play with ourselves, as we put out a thought or a belief, and we really try to play with it and kind of stretch it to its limits. But what really happens is over time, in my experience, and I'm sure you have some stories about this, is like when things start to fall apart from what you have decided, and when things start to happen, naturally as they do, and they're not what you expected, those models that we have, those mental models and ideas about how our life should be and what things should be like, they start to deteriorate. And I think it's very important because this happens to everyone in their life at some point or another. It just matters what were you doing at that stage, how your surroundings were you around loving people or not? Were they able to kind of talk through to it, with you? For me, it just so happened I was all alone, working and, being by myself in a city that I was new to. And I really felt like the weight of the world was all over me, like at the same time where my ideas were collapsing. Meditation came to me almost as a whisper. Actually, my mom introduced it to me. She said, you should do some yoga. And I was like, well, I don't really like the idea of doing a bunch of yoga, but I'll do it anyway. So I tried to look up stuff on YouTube. She sent me a couple of breathing exercises from videos on YouTube. There's tons of Indian gurus out there. And so I started watching one or two of them, and I was kind of like, very, very hard for me to get over how the heck is this going to help me? Like just sitting here, right? But the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. You got to do it, and you got to do it enough to then see. Talk to me a little bit about how when you meditate or when you talk to other people about it, what is it that you're helping people kind of, what barriers are you trying to break with it when they want to, get into this and they're not quite able to?
So there's a couple of things with this is that somehow I've dealt with people who have been in business for a long time, 10, 20, 30 years are usually the clients that I'm working with. And so those patterns are so consistent. And for me, on my side, it's like, yeah, I can see the patterns. They're there. And from a space of meditation to actually be in that space, what it actually takes sometimes is just sit down, close your eyes, and shut up. And that's it. For 5 minutes. And no more.
I know a lot of people that can't do that.
I know. And I've talked with people who have said, Michaela, you don't understand. I can't do that. I can't physically do that. And so then it's okay. So what would allow for you to feel most connected? Because it's really about the connection. It's not necessarily, because eventually we all get into that space of the silence and the connection and all of that. Eventually that is definitely what happens. But there's that space, it's almost like a speed bump or something like that, where you have to get past the speed bump, and then once you get there, then it's, okay, now let's drop into a deeper practice. And so one of the things that my experience has been is that I'll walk people through these exercises, and what they'll see for themselves on the other side is they'll go, oh, maybe I should try that 5 minutes. Because see, before, 20 minutes before, that was so impossible for them to even comprehend.
Right.
Even think about what's possible. But then they go through 10, 15 minutes worth of an exercise and they go, oh, now I see where my blocks are. I didn't see that previous piece before, but now I know where I need to work on. Because for me, how I show up in business is also how I show up in personal. I show up the same way in both places. And so it's not a different person per se. And so hopefully, if I'm showing up abrasive and mean and frustrated and all the rest of this stuff in business, I can guarantee you I'm showing that way in my personal life. And so it's really getting clear on, and I want one more point that you're talking about with the connection to people and being able to see how things shift and what that looks like. And one of the pieces that my experience has been is that whenever I'm with somebody, I usually know already within myself, deep inside, if I'm really being my authentic self.
Hey guys, I just wanted to step in here real quick and let you know that we also have this full conversation live on YouTube where you can see the video of both of us talking. I tend to feel like video captures a little bit more human emotion and you get to really see what someone's reaction was to a statement. So if you're interested in checking that out, you can go to YouTube and search for Blossom Media Studio. Now let's get back to this episode.
Like, I usually know that very, very clearly. And yet sometimes we're not necessarily empowered to express that at all times. And so, which is ultimately what's caused me to be in groups where it's like, I don't belong here. And yet somehow I'm here. And, or if I feel like I'm super lonely, that somehow I kind of forget to like create connection. And, or like, there's all those different pieces that I'm sure we could go on for like the next 2 hours, but in the process of that, to really create a conversation around what does true connection actually look like and feel like? Like, what does that love feel like? Because that's truly what we're seeking in meditation, is falling in love with ourselves. So anytime somebody comes to me and says that I can't do that, like do that for 5 minutes, for me, the question then is, what would it look like to actually fall in love with yourself? Because my guess is that hasn't been a consistent conversation, nor has it been maybe an experience. And so then if there hasn't been a conversation, there hasn't been an experience, then we've just opened up a whole new door. And we get to see, what does that new door actually look like and feel like, and what could that connection be to ourselves?
You said that so beautifully. I really enjoyed a lot of the subtle points that you mentioned there. And I think a couple of them that come back to me is really around like, what would it feel like if you were loving to yourself? And and for me, like, the way I tend to, because a lot of times, you know, people have asked me about like, well, you think differently than I do, or you think very macro or kind of bigger picture. And a lot of that's evolved for me. Is I realize that, I mean, especially working also in tech for me, which is, you know, very intellect driven world, people are very much, you know, they prioritize this having critical thinking as a skill set. However, I would argue that people are not always thinking deeply enough about themselves. They're very good at maybe thinking about other things that are external, but not so good at processing internal. So my approach generally is asking people questions that I know nobody has answers to objectively, like, and then just kind of throwing their mind in some sort of a disarray, but then having them realize, like, look, even though there's all these things that we don't know, the world is still beautiful and it's being taken care of, just like you and I are in this moment. So for example, if I were to tell someone, why do you think the moon exists in our solar system, right? And they'll be like, I don't know, because of this and that and the other thing. I'm like, how about this? When the sun goes down at night, you and I have no idea sitting here that it's around the corner on the other side of this earth. We have some technology, but we have really no idea if it's really there. And whatever created this universe, however it came to be existing, the moon is there reflecting the sun at the time of night when we can't see it. It's like a rear view mirror. It's actually letting us know that it's there around the corner the whole time, and it's going to be back again tomorrow, and we're going to get another day to live. So it's just kind of like talking about how beautiful our system really is already. It's all taken care of. You and I didn't put that there. So what makes you think your little problem right now that you can't solve is the biggest thing in the universe? Because it all feels like that to us. And part of that is like starting to, I think, get people to think more critically about the system that we live in. Or maybe not, I don't know if critical is the right word, but more about opening the gates of your mind to start to see that there's more to it than the 10 or 15 ideas that you have on repeat, you know? And then that allows me to then express or share with somebody like, okay, well, why don't you sit down with me for 5 minutes and then let's do some breathing exercises. They'll be like, what does that mean? We're going to breathe, something you naturally know already how to do, but we're going to do it intentionally. What does that mean? Well, we're going to see how long it takes before you get distracted, and then we're going to notice that, right? And then like kind of start to build off of that. I mean, at least that's what I did even for my own self. I realized that there's so many things going on in our head all the time, and especially when there's, nowadays with our phones and everything, we are so connected that those things linger on even when the time I don't have my phone on me. Or if I'm trying to like go and do something else outside, all of a sudden I'll think of some other idea or thing that I have to do, and I'm back on my technology. It's like, how is that going to scale? Like it's amazing to me that I've gone most of my life without meditating now that I think about it, because it's like I was not aware of so much about myself until I took the time to intentionally sit there and find what is naturally happening within me. Tell me, in the 10 plus years that you've been doing this, what have been the benefits that you've seen? Of course, you mentioned like your brother and such had, much a calmer temperament and all that good stuff. But for you, for 10 plus years, I mean, have you just wasted that time? I don't think so, of course not. But like, what would you say has, kind of brought in yourself, out from there? Like what has come out of it for you?
Oh my goodness, so
It's
much.
probably too many things to name, I would say.
Oh
But
man, so much. I think my health has gotten a whole lot better. I feel a lot more connected. Intimacy with other people is really very, very different. And it's much deeper, and an ability to connect more. And so that's something that's very important to me. The capacity to be able to like just connect to people and like see if somebody is really sad, then it's like, okay, what's going on? I can listen.
yeah,
And like really being able to listen. But I think so there's one like big one. And the big one is the magic. And the like magical moments. And so it was probably about a few weeks ago, and I had reached my limit of how much I could handle in one like weekend, and like I just couldn't do it. Didn't have the time, didn't have the space, didn't have the energy, nothing. And so like just because you practice meditation does not mean you still don't have areas to work on.
that's a good topic. We need to come back to that one.
And so I like was really present to the fact that I was super frustrated and I was just overwhelmed, and I climbed into my car, and you know how it has like the little warning sign for your like tire or whatever?
Right.
I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding. And since I'm in the mountains, it's like, okay, I'm in the mountains. I've got this little tire warning. It's on a Sunday. Nobody's open. COVID's going on. What in the world? Like I have all the, like that story. It was just going like bonkers, right? And I was like, all I wanted to do was do a mountain drive. I didn't want to have to deal with my stupid tire. This is the last thing I wanted to have to deal with. And so, so then I'm like trying to figure out where this tire, like which side on my car is the one that's given the warning and all this. And so drove down through the little town, and I'm going, okay, I'm pretty sure it's like the passenger right. And so, but where do you go to get this fixed? Like, I don't know where you go to get this tire fixed. There's not a discount tire in the mountains, you guys.
Makes sense.
And so I drove to town, and then that's when I started crying because I was really frustrated. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm frustrated with this. This is like not the way that I wanted it to go. I just wanted to be able to go connect to the mountains and feel good. And so I told the universe, I said, look, I need some help, and I need help now. I don't need help like 5 minutes from now. I need help now. So show me where I'm supposed to go. And I had a few expletives amongst this too.
Love it.
To tell the universe where I wanted to go. And so I had this moment where I turned around, and I don't know why I like saw this driveway, and so I drove down the driveway. I was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to go. Doesn't make sense, but okay. I got to the end of the driveway. I stopped my car. There was this dog, and for me, dogs are like total God things, and so or universe things, however you want to perceive it. Like dogs and I get along great. And so this dog came out, and I looked at this dog, and she kind of looked a little protective of the property. But I was like, you know what? She knows that I'm fine. I know she's fine. Okay, we'll hopefully figure this out. So this guy comes out and he goes, how can I help you? Or can I help you? I mean, like, I don't know what's going on. And I said, well, yes, actually you can. I've got a flat tire. And I like explained this whole thing. And I said, I think it's on my passenger side. And he goes, oh, okay, great. Well, I can help. Not a problem. And like, there was that piece inside where I was like, oh, I'm just not sure. And like, can you really help? Is this really going to work? I don't know. And so he said, get into your car and like turn your wheel so that we can make sure, so that we can see like what's there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to understand, I had asked him probably 4 or 5 times if he needed me to move my car because of like an air pump to like help with the car or whatever that looked like. And he kept telling me no. And I was like, well, why do you not need me to move my car? And so guaranteed, I'm like, I have the gerbils running in my brain 100 miles an hour.
That's a good way to explain it.
Thank you. And so I sat in my car and I turned the steering wheel as he had asked me to. And it turns out, had I moved my car, you would not have been able to see the screw that was in my tire right there. Like, honest to goodness, he looked at me and he goes, I found it. And I went, oh, wow, this is interesting. And so I get out of the car and he's like, you know, I can fix this. You know that this is what I do for a living.
And you're like, I have no idea. This is a random person.
Exactly.
Wow, that's quite good.
All I do is I repair cars. I do oil changes. I clean cars. This is what I do. And I said, and he goes, I need to go get a little kit here down the way, but I'll be back. And I said, well, do you want me to come too? He goes, no, you're not going anywhere. Stay here and I'll be back. And so like, it was so amazing to be like in that space because number one, like the magic that's possible in multiple moments, like that's just one 1 hour section of life of like what could be possible out of that. And what could like continue forward could just be like absolutely spectacular. And so he ended up getting the tire repaired and the whole thing, and then I was well on my way. Like no thought process, no need to worry about it. I went through the mountains and I had a great time, like magical time.
I love that story. And the thing that stood out to me, many things, 2 things mainly were, one, you asked the universe for help. You actually said, I think there's something to it. I use that as well for myself where I'll say, I call upon this universe to help me do this while I'm here in this moment. I need help with this. Like, but very specifically, like, and sometimes it's actually really silly sounding. Sometimes it sounds like, I don't know how to do this and I need you, the universe in its infinite wisdom, to help me do this. Yeah. And I'm just going to be here, present, waiting for this, to unfold. And and I'll forget about it. And then, somehow later on at some point in the day, I'll reflect on this other thing that was really bothering me. And somehow things will just work themselves out. So I definitely can understand. I think there's a piece, I don't know what we would call it, like from a terminology perspective, but maybe it's like surrendering to whatever's much bigger than us that we can't explain, and really asking for it to kind of manifest what needs to happen for us, I guess, in that moment. And then being open to whatever happens, like being open to the outcomes of however it comes your way, because those 2 things are very important, because someone without that openness can very easily deflect all kinds of opportunities in their lives that are coming up to try to help them or to try to maybe navigate them in the direction where the universe wants you to go. But maybe there's some other blockage here by a viewpoint or a belief system where it's just holding you back. And it's fascinating to me that, even in this story, this is just, I can come up with many examples that I've where I've had the similar experience, where even right now where I am sitting, in my life, like 3 years ago when I started meditating, I was in a very different state. I was going through a very high, like volatile state of being very anxious and very depressed, and feeling like I have no interest in life and why it is the way it is and my life is the way it is and how it came to be, and just very much like so far out on the left, like negativity side, than I've ever been, I could remember in my life. And then somehow though, like there was always this deeper knowing that I don't know the future. I don't know a lot of things anyway. So I really trusted in, just this guidance of, hey, you should try meditation. You should look into maybe, doing some yoga for yourself. And just at that time, and just to give you some brief history, like before then, I used to be a competitive bodybuilder for a while. So I used to work out a lot. Like I understood the benefit of physical fitness. It's when I stopped taking care of my physical health on a regular basis and started to work more and started to kind of project myself in those kinds of endeavors, I started to realize that my mental health tore down very quickly and I felt less resilient. And so at that point in time, like just doing certain things every day was almost like a pattern building process to just do some exercise of some sort, whether it's breathing or, physical, whatever, to do it in an intentional manner every day, which was just grounding myself to remember that, hey, I know things aren't perfect, but I know that this is going to get better because I believe that life is unfolding for me and good things have also happened amongst all the other horrible things that I can think of. And just kind of reminding myself of like basic, like foundations, I suppose. And that somehow really, like it's the reason I call our studio Blossom Media and why I'm obsessed with blossoming and flowers and all that is because it's really like a very good analogy for how I see human beings. I see us as like, we're seeds and we, sprout up from the soil and then we blossom into these flowers, and that's our journey uniquely, all of us, right? And we need a little sunshine, some water, similar to us, like some food and water. It's the same thing. It's just we're walking plants, and we have this intellectual capability of thinking. I highly doubt plants are going, oh, I don't want to be a pine tree. I would rather be a palm tree instead. It's like, but human beings, because we have this ability to kind of, I guess, command ourselves to do things, but we have this huge like opposition inside too, and I'm sure you can speak to it, where you want to do things, but then you have this other voice telling you no. So what's the real truth? What's the real like voice inside of you of truth? You want to do some things, but then at other times you don't want to do these things. And then you set out goals for yourself and you're very motivated, and the other times you're not. So it seemed very obvious to me that these are all passing states. They're not persistent. How do you deal with that? Like what for you as well? Like, you mentioned a point earlier, which maybe we can dig into now, is like, I think there's a huge misconception that just because you're meditating, you're now all of a sudden like some saint or whatever, you're going to be perfect and you're never going to get angry and nothing will ever go wrong for you because you're a meditator. I mean, I couldn't tell you how silly that sounds, right? But for some reason, right, I think that's just another play of our ego, right? When we start to think of meditation as a practice or something that serves us, we can very easily see like, well, if you just did meditation, it would solve your problems to somebody else. But it's like, that's not really the entire truth, right? So talk to me a little bit about that, maybe, from your perspective. How is that kind of played out in your life and continues to? And how do you deal with like this consistent like battle, quote unquote, that I'm calling it, like where you have these desires and you want to do things, but then you also want to be completely open to the outcomes from the universe and the way they play out, and that sort of struggle between control and not knowing like which voice to listen to.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer the last one.
Too many questions in there.
Yeah. And then if I have more, we'll see how it goes.
Sure.
So the first piece is just being in the space of the unknown. That's like absolutely the most magical place to be in, to me. It doesn't always happen. Like it's not, and it's one of those from my own experience. It's like, okay, I know that I need to be there. I know that I want to be there, but how do I get there again? And then it's like, oh, that's right. I got to let go of the story. I've got to like be fully present into the moment, let go of whatever the outcome is, and be able to be fully present in love. Like love is absolutely, obviously the most powerful energy on the planet. And so if we're fully present to love, then we can have the opportunity to actually be in that space of the unknown and just allow for people, places, and things to show up exactly as they are without needing for control or show up a certain way or otherwise. That's like the first piece. The next piece is oh goodness, I totally forgot what you're...
Well, I was just curious around like what to do, right? When you're having this duality of like, I want to do things, but I sometimes don't. And then we have this inner battle all the time, right? Like even after like having a meditation practice and knowing what we know about how, let's say, we coexist with this universe and we are a part of it, I still seem to believe, like, or not believe, but I still seem to come across this inner struggle at times where it's like, dude, you know all this. Like, you could, this isn't how it works. It's not in your control. But there's always sometimes there's this strong force that comes of opposition, and so melting into that, and you've already kind of answered it, where it's like you have to kind of go through the process of, what am I holding on to that's causing me this suffering right now? What idea is it? Am I strongly attached to this outcome? And that's the issue. And then, you kind of walk back from there. Okay, well, if I let go of that outcome, what would I feel like? How would I feel if, I was in love with everything that was happening, even the process that I'm not, a fan of. But then,
not in love with.
but then, like, turning that into, I guess, action, and then like going forward with it, have you found any sort of techniques that have helped you?
So for me, I kind of have a maybe a different approach. I don't know. It's not just one like way, like one path. Like,
sure,
take that trail and that's the way to go.
It's like you're having all the different tools in your tool belt. You put out the right one for the right occasion.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, I eat, for myself, my experience has been is that if I eat super healthy, it definitely helps the way my brain works. So there's a lot less of those ups and downs and ins and outs and all the rest of the stuff. It's way more like I feel within myself that I feel much calmer. And so that piece is definitely important. The next piece that's been super important is I go to this doctor who's a chiropractor. And he's a form of chiropractic called network spinal analysis. And it is absolutely fantastic because it's all using the meridian points throughout your body to then ultimately allow for the brain to provide more connection to that particular point, which then allows for the brain to go, oh, I'm bringing awareness to my right rib, like whatever number rib. And then it can allow for that adjustment to happen. And so it's not a snap, crackle, pop kind of modality. It's all about energy and about the brain creating new neurotransmitter highways, I guess you could call it. And so that piece has been an amazing piece for me. And then the third one has been traditional Chinese medicine. I have a doctor based in New York that I work with that has like completely changed my entire life for like my own health, how my physical body works. In the last 3 years, a few years ago, I had an experience with myself that was not necessarily the most positive situation that could have occurred. And so my physical health just like went down to the worst that it's ever been. And so I've been working with her ever since this point. And what's been amazing is that my physical body just feels like so different. And I'm able to like respond to things versus just react.
Right.
And so like it's so different because it's like whenever something comes at us, sometimes just like I'm just gonna react. Ah! And like that's the way it's gonna go. Versus something comes to me, there's like a couple second lull, and then we get the opportunity to respond. And so being able to use all these different tools, and then I've gone into becoming a healing touch practitioner. And so I'm in the process of that also. And so that'll hopefully be by next year, I'll be a healing touch practitioner. And then of course my own meditation practice on a daily basis. That's been super important. Seeking out mentors, that has also been a very powerful tool for me to like consistently create it so that I am in the conversation with people and so that they confront me on my stuff, because I have plenty of stuff to be confronted on. And
as do we all.
Yeah, exactly. We're all human. And so like to be in that conversation with them and have a mentor that like causes for something new to show up. That's always the piece that I'm always looking for in a mentor is, okay, so you have a practice, then what, and it's not, and I won't ever say that the mentor is somehow above me, but it's always equal. Like we're always equals. And that's the piece that as we grow and as we practice more and as we create more and as we do more, then we also get the opportunity to like realize that we're all equals. We're all human. We're all there. And
we're all one, actually, if we could get past our stories.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of really good things that you mentioned in there. I think starting with your health, of course, is very, very important. What you put in your body has so much to do with the type of cells it generates and the quality of those cells and all the other inner workings of our amazing organism that we are. And we totally consciously are unaware of it. Like I'm not aware of my, each cell in my body and how it's moving around and whatnot. But it's amazing how much your inner thought process has an effect on the health of your physical body, though. I know for sure that's true. Like, I mean, anybody can try this. They can just sit here and think about all the dark things in their mind for about 10 minutes and see how you feel, and then do the complete opposite and see how you feel and how you actually feel physically. You'll actually feel much different. It's polarizing completely. It's either like way up or like way down. To the point where you actually maybe want to like not even be alive. It does happen. It really does. And so like, I guess where I'm trying to go with it is, help me understand what you've taken from your journey and how you're applying that to Meditation Nut. Is that like your private practice to help other people grow in meditation? And then also, I know you also do Karma Koaches as a business. I'd love to hear, and I think the audience would too, about that and what that entails. So give me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's Meditation Nut. It is my private practice. And so through that, what I've done is obviously primarily worked with executives and folks that have been in business for a long time and are really wanting, they've worked with a lot of other coaches already, and they're just like, well, not sure what else to do.
Yes. All roads lead to meditation. That should be one. If that's not a shirt already. We need to make one of those. Go ahead, wander around and get all messed up, and we'll see you back here. It's like the Roomba. It goes around, hits all the walls, and it comes back, and it's like, well, you got to come back to this at some point in your life. It's a good one.
And so it's an amazing. What's amazing is to see the results. I recently finished with a client here, and we had worked together for the last year. And in the process of that, one of the things that had shown up for her was that every single area of her life changed. Like every single one. It wasn't like, oh, just physical or oh, just spiritual. No, all of it. And I just find that just incredible. And to me, that's like, yes, that's what we want. And yet, whenever we first initially come into coaching, sometimes that's like, oh, no, I don't want to change everything. Don't want that.
True.
So that's it. From an actual coaching practice, that's typically what ends up happening is that the transformation that ends up occurring is that every single piece of their lives gets touched. And while I know that people come in with one like thought process as to what they want as an outcome, it's not typically that way. It's usually, okay, let's work together and like let's actually cause or create something new to like have that momentum happen. And then we meet on typically a weekly basis.
Gotcha.
And then through that, be able to like actually do the work. Like that's the piece that separates people from others, is doing the work versus not doing the work. That's it.
I mean, that's true for anything, right? It's like you can know all the theory, but at some point you got to, do something.
Yeah, exactly. And so within that, that's been like just an absolute joy and immense experience that I get the opportunity to work with people. And it's just such an honor in for me, because I just feel so grateful for people to open up about who they are and to like actually be willing to like want that space and want to create that with me. And so it's just incredible.
So if someone wanted to get in touch with you about meditation, where would they go? Where should they find you?
So LinkedIn is probably the easiest spot.
That's where I found her.
That's where I hang out the most.
It's a great platform, and I'm just loving how much it's growing this year in 2020. It's been amazing. You know, so and then tell me a little bit about like Karma Koaches and what the mission behind that is, and you know, how that works.
Yeah, so Karma Koaches, I started this a little over a year ago, and so for myself, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and so with this business, one of the things that I've built it on is 3 pillars, which is connect, create, and transform. So connect is the more we connect to ourselves, the more we get the opportunity to connect to others.
Right.
Create is creating something new. So as a coach, we get the opportunity to ask a question or say a statement or something that allows for that creation of something new. And then transform is that ripple effect that happens both in the coach's life and also in the client's life. And because that ripple effect, whenever that like moment happens where you see a client go, oh, I get it now. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden as a coach, we get the opportunity to go, wow, that was an amazing experience. And then that allows for that ultimate ripple effect in our own lives of people around us being able to experience that just as much as within the client's life. And so that is what the platform is based on. And so currently we have life and business coaches on the platform. And what we do is we do monthly masterminds, monthly book groups, and then we also have our Masters Network. And within that, we partner with organizations to provide leads to the coaches. We have our Coach Partner Program, which is where I actually work with corporations to provide coaching services, and then I match them with specific coaches. And so it's more of a small team kind of a basis.
Gotcha.
Where we do those type of services. And so within the Coach Partner Program, we provide executive coaching, leadership coaching, business growth coaching, and then sales coaching. And so, but then with the life and business coaches of like other ones that are actually on our platform itself, those are just where we get the opportunity to connect to individuals too. And just say, hey, get connected to this person, or hey, get connected to that person. They're seeking for a coach just like you, or whatever that might look like. So it's been a really interesting year, I will say that, because we started last August. And then, you know, I've always had this thing or focus on wanting to do more like online, have an online business. Mm-hmm. That's been like what my primary focus has been. And so what I had thought though with an online business was that I was going to be doing like still speaking engagements and things like that. And I was wrong. Things have changed.
For everyone this year.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's been an amazing shift to be in. It's like, what does that shift actually look like, and really practice that for myself.
So have you noticed, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off if you had more, go ahead. Have you noticed, like, so you mentioned, you know, you're working with businesses or enterprises, I guess, to help them, you know, get coaching. What's been your kind of viewpoint on, because I've been trying to figure this out for myself, like working that I, you know, work in the tech industry and with a lot of large businesses and whatnot, you know, I have endeavors of wanting to also help people by what I've learned, because I feel like I'm a good candidate for someone who's done a lot of work in physical health. I understand that really well. I've been doing work with my own, you know, inner self. And I think I have, from what other people tell me, after, you know, conversating with me, a lot of people come back with saying that, hey, I feel way more clear about, you know, things, and I'm in a better place now and I feel good, which has just motivated me, because I'm always been a very driven individual too, has motivated me to want to find, again, it's almost like, rather than get upset at it, I've asked the universe to find a way to help me with this. Maybe you're a part of that now. And it's like, how do I get into helping other people in a larger scale. Part of that this podcast is essentially to make this a library of me trying to talk to other people about these things which I think are very valuable and important. And you know, what have you noticed in like the workforce? Like, are people open to wanting to meditate or learn more about it, or is that not the approach you go with it? Kind of just curious for my own sake, like what works for you to kind of get the enterprise people or people in business intrigued or even interested in this?
So I've actually had people approach me.
Okay. So they're ripe fruits ready for picking.
I'm a perfect peach.
I like that.
I love peaches with the like super soft and fuzzy.
Yum.
Oh my gosh, they're so wonderful. But no, I've had people approach me in the context of like providing meditation for their organization, like for a lunch break or something like that,
Gotcha.
or for their monthly meeting or something. Because one of the things that's going on right now is that people have literally had to shift their entire world, all of it. And so it's not like, oh, I only have to shift part of it. It's, oh no, like we have like literally flipped a coin.
Yeah.
And so in that conversation with some of these organizations, it's okay, so if we flip the entire coin, then what does it actually look like for your employees to be happy? And what would it actually look like for your employees to want to work for you and like want to stay and not be like, oh my gosh, so in fear, but like actually be present to what might be possible out of generating who they are. Because if a company can empower people in who they are, like who their employees actually are, not what they want, not what it's supposed to look like, not any of that, but who they actually are. If they know how to do that, then the company will be very successful.
Right. Of course. It makes sense. I mean, if people that are there are more focused on being present and loving and caring about the business, it's going to do well. I believe that. I have a small business that my wife is running and I help her out with. You know, part of that is having this podcasting studio and this backdrop that you see behind me, you know, helping people kind of put their branding behind them and all that good stuff. And, you know, a large part of us growing even our small team has been trying to find people and getting them to understand that, look, we don't just care about like what work you can do. It's more about how can we collectively like help each other, and then also in a bigger picture, everybody else that we're going to touch with this. And, you know, like kind of I'm really, really helping to work around building a team that's centered and focused on like what matters and what's essential, and not just kind of like what we all kind of fall in the mundaneness of life. You know, it's just very common, right? So we've been programmed to do that for so long. It's a whole different thing now, you know, to go about it.
There's this, I want to tell you a story.
Please tell me.
Here. So I had previously owned a pet sitting and dog walking company. And so I was in the process of hiring new pet sitters. And I was going through like one of those periods where I was frustrated because I wasn't attracting like the right pet sitter. And by the right pet sitter, like reliable, communicative, has the ability to take care of dogs, follows through, all that kind of stuff. And so I met this person, and it was interesting because like in the conversation, she like felt like she was continuously trying to persuade me as to how good of a job that she could do, right? Like she goes, Michaela, you just don't understand. Like I can do this job. And I'm like, but you don't understand how many people have like totally pulled the rug from underneath my feet. And in the conversation with her, one of the things that showed up by the end of it was that she was absolutely amazing at what she did. Because I ended up hiring her and I said, okay, one job, that's it.
Try to test you out.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I saw though out of that, once I got to the other side, is that the team that I started building after her was so different than what it was before, because I finally saw what it was I actually wanted. Like, what was actually there for me was I saw she was communicative, she was responsible, she was super passionate, and she absolutely loved and adored them, like loved the dogs, and like she was always in communication with me if something ever happened, and she was also very responsible. If for some reason I couldn't get to my phone, then she like said, I made a decision, this is the way that we're going to go. And it might seem simple as a pet sitting and dog walking company, but had that not happened, I don't think, number one, I would have had the team that I had, but also I don't know if I would have seen some of the things I do now, where I see how important that is whenever people feel fully seen. Like fully seen. Recently we had a coach on Karma Koaches actually pass away.
Oh.
And she passed away about a month ago. And I had gotten together with her a few months ago, and it was amazing to me to be in this conversation, because what showed up was that she had said one of the things about Karma Koaches that she really liked was she felt fully seen. Like, this was a platform where she was like, this is it. Like, this is mine. Like, this is my platform. This is what I've been looking for. And what she had expressed was that in her relationship, so like in her personal relationships, she had an experience being fully seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever she passed, I felt off. I couldn't figure out why I felt off. I was just like, oh, I mean, number one, I haven't ever lost somebody in business that I've like done business with. And so I was like, okay, maybe that's what it is. But then a friend of mine had asked, she goes, so what's going on? Like, what's actually there? And I said, I don't know. And what I finally realized is that all of us really want to be fully seen and fully loved. And that's it. Like, there's nothing else. Fully seen and loved, and our life can be fully complete. And I got that. And like, once I saw that, I was like, oh, this is the platform for coaches to feel fully seen and loved. That's what it is.
I love that. That's what you've built with Karma Koaches.
Yep. You got it.
What a beautiful mission for a business, right? Not just for profit like everybody else. But I mean, that's really, I can resonate a lot with that, because that's why I wanted to do or start Blossom Media Studio, is really to help people elevate their voices and kind of recognize the power in it, to be able to feel comfortable enough to speak your truth and just talk from your own perspective. And also just kind of, being intentional about it, because when you sit down and you try to do it or have a conversation with somebody, you have to be present with them. You can't really be distracted and be other places. And that teaches us, I believe it's a way of communication and bonding and connection. It definitely helps when the people are in person, if it's a little bit different. But at the same time, I would say, with just the way technology works nowadays, how like quick it is to, see the video real time and everything, I don't think it's that much, different as of now. It's actually more convenient than anything, right? Like, look at you, you're in a different state, different time zone, and here we are, making this happen now. And, I really, really have enjoyed this conversation with you. And maybe the last thing that I want to ask you before I let you go for the day is really like, how would you say you want to be remembered when it's all said and done?
That I brought love, joy, and laughter.
I love it. I just want to remind people that they're peace and love, and they keep forgetting. With that said, Michaela, I can't thank you enough for being here today with me on this show. If there's anything else you want to mention before we sign off.
No, I mean, nothing. If you want to connect me, connect me.
Connect with her on LinkedIn. She's a very energetic, loving soul, and I've really just gotten a really good glimpse of it, just in this conversation. And I'm pretty sure everybody who listens back to this will as well. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart for being here and being a part of this. And can't wait to see how our lives blossom after this.
Blossoming. Oh boy.
Yep. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll be back next time.